Hello and welcome to In Pursuit of Clarity, episode number 27, entitled The YouTube Phenomenon as Microcosm. Most of you listening are aware of the issues being experienced across YouTube and all major platforms with regards to the censorship and banning of opinions and worldviews they oppose. If you've been paying close attention, you've likely witnessed numerous panics regarding purges, and the fear that everyone who doesn't applaud drag queens grooming our children, or embrace Marx or Thunberg, might be removed all at once, leaving us completely without a voice across most of the web. I think this fear of a sudden and total purge is unfounded, though I almost wish it were otherwise, and wanted to elaborate on this idea to illustrate a larger point. Whether one believes that YouTube is solely a profit-seeking enterprise, making all decisions according to an economic bottom line, or whether you believe one of their goals might be the reshaping of culture, in either case, a sudden and total purge would be contrary to their best interests. Say what you will about the ethics or standards of such companies and the individuals that run them, one thing can't be denied. They are very good at what they do. That is to say, they're very good at maneuvering the cultural and economic and legal framework by which businesses succeed or fail. The evidence for this is readily obvious. They're one of the most influential and powerful companies in the world, and are part of a culture that creates and maintains such companies with an effortless ease. Susan W., who currently runs YouTube, has a sister that runs the largest genetic database in the world, and her husband was co-founder of Google. 3 of the most powerful entities on the planet, all run by a small, interconnected circle of very like minds. I certainly don't think these people are brilliant by any objective standard, but there's no debating that somehow everything they touch manages to succeed, wildly, as if by magic. Of course, this is obviously due in large part to cronyism and nepotism, and cultural and tribal inclinations to promote their own, but they're also extremely shrewd and clever, and can afford to employ many of the best minds in the world to run their corporate constructs accordingly. And this is precisely what's so disturbing. A total YouTube purge, all at once, would be something of a gift to those hoping for healthy change. It would force all marginalized parties to finally create truly viable alternatives, and would lead to extremely energetic boycotts and a mass exodus. And this is precisely why this will likely never happen. I speak of YouTube as a microcosm because what they've done in this regard is so similar to what's been done for decades in similar instances. And not just with regards to tech, or even purely in the economic sphere, but the political and cultural as well. They push as far as they're able without instigating a crippling blowback, but very carefully, and I believe very consciously, not one step further. And then they simply wait a bit until the furor dies down, and then they repeat this cycle endlessly. We need to give credit where due and recognize the culture at work is impressive in this regard, masters of their craft. We may find this particular craft to be loathsome and manipulative in the highest degree, but we can't deny this seems to be their exceptional skill set, and I believe we must start recognizing this and spreading this recognition. And finally, to counter it, we must someday soon learn to draw very firm red lines, which, if crossed, lead to firm and definitive action. How this manifests exactly is beyond the scope of this short episode, nor should any one person attempt to chart the course of its manifestation. It needs to happen organically and collectively, and after much thought and discussion. But eventually, much like Virginia and their current Second Amendment line in the sand, it needs to happen on several fronts. We deserve a say in the prevailing culture within the nations our fathers built, and a say in how our children are raised and what they're exposed to. Those who disagree with this are playing a dangerous game, and one that, historically, won't end well for them. Choosing to poison oneself or even one's family is one thing. Demanding this poison be administered to impressionable young minds within families that want no part of this sickness seems to me not only child abuse, but the highest form of objective evil, as much as I hate using that term. Just as we don't force our culture on others, we should expect to be able to live in a world in which the culture of others isn't forced upon us. And this is just one of the multitude of issues caused by globalism and multiculturalism, and this insane one-size-fits-all human experiment, and one of the multitude of reasons it's inevitably destined to fail so miserably. What's so disturbing about the structure we're wrestling with is its hidden proficiency at manifesting cultural change, slowly but surely, and its seemingly unassailable methods. We just spoke of the conception of pushing just far enough, but never too far, and endlessly repeating this cycle, but there's another dimension at play here, which needs to be understood and communicated to help hasten its demise. YouTube might be thought of as a single tendril of an octopus, granted one of its most important and significant, if not the single most, but still a tendril, and one that if hacked off would simply grow back anew over time in a slightly different form. The head of the octopus, the toolbox from which all tools spring forth, is money, and specifically our financial and banking system, with its central banking and Federal Reserve and usury and fiat currencies. This isn't to say there aren't still many good people with a great deal of money, many of whom have helped produce and create ideas or products or services that have been, in one way or another, beneficial and a net positive. It is to say that the slow evolution of our monetary system over the past many decades, one might even say centuries, has very much been a net negative movement. This is the trend. Money increasingly flows into the hands of less fundamentally creative and productive and principled men, those most skilled at finding any and every means, by hook or by crook, of extracting every last penny from the public at large. This trend has spawned countless cases like that of the Sackler family, the opiate magnates indirectly responsible for costing the lives of tens of thousands of Americans in physical, psychological, and spiritual pain, while making billions in the process. It creates men like George Soros, who learn to manipulate the currencies of nations to make windfall profits while nearly destroying the country being targeted, and then use these profits to attack various races and religions and cultures they oppose. Men like the Koch brothers, willing to cause nearly irreparable harm to Western nations if it boosts their bottom line even slightly. And of course the very small handful of banking families who, wisely, remain hidden from view, allowing their tools and pawns to engage in any games they choose to play as long as the chips fall in their favor at the end of the day. I say again something I've said many times before and will likely say many times in the near future. Our world was not meant to be governed by men whose only pronounced skill sets seem to be financial parasitism. This is, in fact, a recipe for guaranteed disaster or total human slavery. This is why nationalism is such a valuable ideology in present circumstances, and why it sounds so absurd when a scattered few on the alt-right counter-signal the concept. Nationalism is the last bulwark against a worldwide domination of globalist vultures, and the situation with Brexit and the EU illustrates this struggle perfectly. To assume we might allow such forces to create the international unity they so aggressively seek, and then somehow flip the script and take over, seems remarkably naive. It's important to keep in mind that as this game is played, whereby certain forces seeking to reshape the world push as far as they can get away with, and then pull back and wait for a bit, and then repeat, they're gaining ever more control over the structures and mechanisms of power, and further populating its ranks with like minds and useful idiots, those more than willing to carry out orders in exchange for personal gain. And such types, unfortunately, are in endless supply. If a global structure were to be created in this manner, its each and every layer will have been created by those who most despise and oppose us. To assume we might then work within this structure strikes me as madness. The only sane solution seems to be to allow for and aid in the collapse of this effort, and then seek to build something very different in its place. Speaking personally, I believe after decades of nefarious actors poisoning our minds, bodies, and souls, I don't believe humanity is anywhere near ready for global unity. And to most efficiently put the brakes on this train, we really do need to fully grasp the tactics being used here on every front, and begin working together, developing solutions, workarounds, and very real lines in the sand. And I look forward to speaking on this topic much more specifically in the near future. But that is all for now. Happy New Year to you all, and thank you for listening.
This is the end, beautiful friend. This is the end, my own.